Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video, I thought we would kick things off by talking about all of the startling news in the DC cinematic universe, the DCU as it's now being called. It was previously the DCEU, the DC Extended Universe. Excuse me. James Gunn, Peter Safron, as we've discussed, kind of slotted into that Kevin Feige position at DC as James Gunn wraps up the last of his Marvel obligations with Guardians Volume 3 coming here in the next year. But they made a lot of headlines over the last week and a half with the announcement that Henry Cavill would not be returning as Superman. Ben Affleck could return to direct a film, but would not be returning as Batman. Rumblings that Momoa is going to get the axe after Aquaman 2. Patty Jenkins is off Wonder Woman. There was speculation that Gal Gadot was out as Wonder Woman, but James Gunn kind of alluded that wasn't the case. The Rock, Black Adam is going to be on the shelf for a while. So a lot of the things, especially considering that Superman's return with Henry Cavill was teased heavily with a big cameo at the end of Black Adam, that was literally just about a month ago. And then, now we are where we are here with sort of the remnants of the Snyderverse, as it is called, being torn down. We know that Shazam star Zachary Zach Levi,
I think.
Levy, yeah. Has said that he met with James Gunn and his character is safe. There's some other things coming in the near future. Blue Beetle, as for one. We know that the Joker sequel is greenlit, but there's still no official word on the Batman sequel with Pattinson, Zoe Kravitz, Matt Reeves, and that whole gang. So I think if you're a DC fan, the recent announcements may have you excited, may have you upset, but either way probably leaves your head a little bit spinning. What do you think about all these moves and the direction that it appears as though he did confirm too that they're looking at tying very closely to the comics, and that what they're working off right now is very like Young Justice, the Young Justice storyline. They did inform Henry Cavill that they were going to be doing a younger take on Superman. So what are your thoughts on all the big DC news here?
I think my big thing, just kind of walking away from it, is Henry Cavill was Superman. It sounds weird to say this. Since Christopher Reeve, it's really only been one to me, and it's been Henry Cavill. And you could say Henry Cavill is actually more Superman than actually Christopher Reeves when you actually think about the way that, Superman looked and everything. Christopher Reeves just happened to be in those two good Superman movies, two really bad Superman movies, those original Superman movies. It bums me out that they never made a great Superman movie with Henry Cavill. There's okay movies that involve him, and we've talked about that Superman's kind of a lame character, but there's a lot of lame characters in comic books that have movies that are way better than they deserve to be. I think the way you can look at it, honestly, you look at Guardians of the Galaxy,
Mm-hmm.
a comic book that no one cared about, and then they turned it into something that's become a thing. Whether or not we like it or not, that's beside the point. It's become a thing. And so that kind of bummed me out, because I also just like Henry Cavill. I think he's kind of a person that deserves better than this in a way. I meant being Superman, not necessarily like being cut away from it. But I do think that starting over is the process that needs to happen. The reason why I think this is I think everybody needs to kind of start over again. I think Marvel's at a place that I'm not sure I'm like super stoked about. I mean, I haven't even seen Black Panther yet, and you've said it's good, and I know other people said it's good, but I'm just, maybe it's just because I'm older or whatever, but there is kind of that idea of like, it's been now 2008 was the first Iron Man movie, right? Mm-hmm. So it's been 14 years. That's essentially a movie generation. It's not a generation, but it's a movie generation. It's almost a generation, but it's a movie generation of like, you can kind of start over. I'm not saying that they need to make a new Iron Man movie. What I am saying is that if things aren't working, you might want to start over. I don't know what DC does though. And I think that's the problem is Batman's that, right? I mean, Batman is undeniably something that even if it's bad, it's fine.
Well,
right?
Can we talk about
fine.
the Schumacher debacles?
Those movies still made a lot of money, is what I'm saying. Is like they still made money, and like now it's almost a thing where they're so bad they're kind of like good. And that idea, like people, I don't mean they're good, but what I mean is like people like to watch them because they're so bad. They like to pick on them.
Sure,
but they're still kind of iconic, though. It's a weird thing to say, and it's because such big actors still played Batman.
Sure.
And the thing I don't really, and this is probably going to sound like, I don't want to see some like kid that I've never heard of play Batman. I just don't want to see it. It should be someone that plays Batman. Like someone you have to, I feel like you have to earn being Batman. Every other actor that's been Batman since these movies have come out has earned being Batman. And if it's some like rum-dum kid that's 20 and playing young Batman, I honestly don't care. Because there's something about being a little older, being a little grizzled, that makes Batman work. And I know I'm probably just focusing on that. I don't think that is the move either. I think it's to keep Pattinson, be okay with that, let that storyline just do its own thing, and then figure out what else you're going to do with comic books that I honestly don't think are that good and just somehow stood the test of time in other ways, but comic books that never were that appealing to me when I had Marvel there to reach out. I think it's a tough position for them. I'd be interested to see what they would do, but I definitely don't think moving away from Pattinson is the move to make, not just because I like him, because also that movie was awesome. And
yeah.
So I think that would be my thoughts going forward on that.
I think that the problem with the Matt Reeves, Robert Pattinson Batman film is the same problem for DC as the Nolan films, which is part of the reason that they are so successful is that they are very grounded in reality, right? He has, he's got his tools in his tool belt and everything, but like the car, the Batmobile, for example, in the Batman was basically just, like a souped up Dodge Challenger or whatever, muscle car.
It was a muscle car. Yeah.
And the Bale led Batman films were very much, Batman is strong because he has, he works out. He's smart because he has all these degrees. He's wealthy because of this, that, and the other. And so I think part of the problem is when you take something like Batman, which has no fantastical elements in it with these films, the Nolan and then the Reeves film, and try to inject into that Atlanteans with Aquaman, Kryptonians, Amazons, Darkseid from another dimension or wherever the fuck he's from. It just is, Hawkman, Black Adam, these different, they're so over the top, like campy with their powers, and their ability, Superman shoots lasers out of his eyes. And so how do you try to inject that into a story that's being told in a way that it's very grounded, it's very gritty? Batman can get hurt by just a guy. You know what I mean? And so
Right.
I think that's really the hard part, is that what Snyder tried to do was make this sort of gritty, gray overtones as he's wont to do in many of his films, obviously. But I just think that the things that make Batman so good across generations, the whole way from Adam West till Robert Pattinson, are all the reasons why it does not fit in with the rest of those characters. And that is a problem for them, because Batman is far and away the most interesting character of all the DC characters. And you could even make the case that it's really not even Batman, that it's his rogues gallery of villains, but even there's not a whole lot of fantastical elements involved. You've got your rich evil orphan and the Penguin. You've got the Joker, who is like clinically insane, but he's just a guy. You've got this mad scientist, Dr. Freeze, Mr. Freeze, or whatever, but they're not like, no one's shooting lasers out of their eyes. No
Right.
one is, there's not like any, no one's swimming underwater without air. And it is very much that the struggle there, where in Marvel it works because even the grounded characters are fantastical in some way. Like Steve Rogers is just a guy, but he's also a super soldier, right? He was given super soldier serum. Like Tony Stark's just a dude, but he's also a billionaire genius who can create these things. And I think that regardless of who's in the role, who's at the helm, I think that DC films in general, they might, and I think it'll be like what happened with the previous iteration. You might have a couple hits here and there outside of the Batman stuff. Like the first Wonder Woman is great. I don't think anybody can deny that. The first Wonder Woman is excellent. But after that, what do you really have? Like the Aquaman movie was really, middling. Batman versus Superman was not very well received. The Justice League movie, that was kind of the half Snyder, half Whedon thing, was obviously not very well received. You have The Flash with Ezra Miller just being a freaking weirdo psycho. And so there's all these things, and it's all these disparate parts that connect but don't really. And I think they're going to have just a very difficult time making it all work, because as many Superman fans as there are out there, like there's a reason why Superman hasn't been iterated on as much as Batman. And it has a lot to do with the fact that his rogues gallery of villains is not that impressive, and that he's so overpowered that he's uninteresting. And so I think that's where they're really going to struggle. I honestly don't think it matters who is in these roles. I just don't think that there's a level of competition in this space, in the live action space, when I honestly think that the Nolan movies like ruined any chance for any kind of DC universe to be a thing, because everybody's going to look at those and say, okay, well, these are great and Christian Bale's awesome, and even though we like Affleck, it just doesn't hold a candle. And then when you really look at why those movies are great, it's because of how grounded they are, how believable they are, outside of like his tank. But other than that, everything in those movies is possible. And so I think that is that's one of the things that they're going to struggle with, regardless of who plays Batman, who plays Superman, young Batman, young Superman, whatever. It's just going to be a tough sell across the board, because I just don't think that that's a marriage that works. And I think that that's going to be an issue. Now, what I will say is this is my theory, is that they're doing this because they said quotes regarding the Henry Cavill situation was that he's no longer going to be Superman, but they may bring him back in a different role at a later point. And what I think is actually maybe percolating here is that they go with this young Superman idea, and then either eventually that character ages up and Henry comes back as Superman, or they get to a point with Flashpoint Paradox where they can explore multiverse stuff and then he comes back in that way. But I don't think that Henry Cavill is completely done with the red cape and the blue pajamas.
I really hope so, because he is Superman as far as I'm concerned. I mean, like, there's something, it's just the way he looks, the way he takes, like the way he took it. Like, that's one of the funny, but we've talked about this before, is like, he's a nerd.
Yep.
He is buff and handsome, but at the end of the day, it's like, he's actually as nerdy as anyone, and like could come on this pod and like, he could just talk to you about video games, and I could just be like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
Can I feel your arm?
And I think Henry had a bad month. Henry had a bad month.
He did. He had a bad month.
The Witcher and then Superman after being like reintroduced as Superman, and he had a rough month. But I mean, we'll see. James Gunn said that they have a slate that they're working on, that they're getting together things, and that they're very excited to show what they're going to be putting out here in the next couple months. So we'll see, but I think that, and they acknowledged as well, and he acknowledged pretty directly that he knew that there would be a period of turmoil and hard feelings amongst the fans, but he feels like once they see what he has to offer and what the whole team has to offer, that fans will be excited about what's to come. But we shall see.
It was a bad month for Henry Cavill, but the good thing for Henry Cavill is every day he wakes up and he gets to be Henry Cavill. Yeah. So
yeah, I guess he's going to be doing something with Warhammer 40K and bringing that to life. So I mean, he had a big hand in The Witcher. So I think that he has, I don't know if it's producing whatever, but he certainly has some pull to get these things made, and to get them made well. The Witcher's very, very well regarded. So there's that. But that's nice for him.
I think don't get rid of Gal Gadot either. I don't, but just to end on that real, for me.
Well,
I just,
yeah, I think the issue with that situation, agreed. But I think the issue with that situation was less her and more Patty Jenkins.
Right.
And I'm starting to maybe get the sense that, not from the actor standpoint, but from like the production side of things or the studio side of things, that she may be a little bit difficult to work with, because I know Star Wars has shelved her project or canceled. I'm not 100% sure where it stands right now. I know that she had pitched Thor 2, I believe, at the recommendation of Natalie Portman, and they didn't, they weren't able to come to any kind of an agreement. But I'm not sure. I mean, like I said, Wonder Woman, the first one, really great. Wonder Woman 84, not as much.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's okay. It's like a 6.5, I think.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up her. I wanted to bring up Gal Gadot because I knew you'd go to Patty Jenkins, just because I wanted to read Patty Jenkins' husband's bio.
Patty Jenkins'
Sam Sheridan.
Bio. Okay.
Yeah. Sam Sheridan is a Harvard graduate and the author of the books The Disaster Diaries, A Fighter's Heart, and A Fighter's Mind. He's been a boxer, mixed martial arts fighter, sailor, cowboy, South Pole construction worker, and merchant marine. He lives in Los Angeles.
I'm not sure about like any of that.
Okay. I just love it. Martial arts fighter, sailor, Cowboy,
Cowboy.
South Pole
Yeah,
construction worker.
that was the one.
I mean, like a cowboy is a real profession, but it's just funny with all that. Like everything is
Yeah.
hilarious there. Like nothing there is not funny.
Yeah.
Sam
She's
Sheridan, a Sam of all trades.
she doesn't have a great deal of credits as a director. I think
Nah.
the most successful thing in terms of like critical is Monster, the Charlize Theron, Christina Ricci thing.
Right.
She directed that, and that won Best Actress. That won, some stuff. She was nominated for
Yeah.
a couple Best Directors for that, and then the two Wonder Woman vehicles. But outside of that, some TV shows here or there. The Killing. She directed a couple episodes of Entourage. She directed an episode of Arrested Development, but not a ton, and that's kind of interesting. She's regarded very well. She wrote Monster. She wrote the screenplay for Wonder Woman 84. But yeah, I don't know. In any case,